Hey, it's Ashley.
And Patty, and we are your co-hosts for the Phoenix Forte podcast. Join us to connect to healing and joy after divorce by chatting with phenomenal guests, fearlessly confronting hot topics, and feeling the spirit with our mic drop moments.
So jump into the flames, rise from the ashes, and be strong and loud as you hang out with us here at Phoenix Forte. I imagine the whiplash that you experienced, love that word, with this person who had become so important. He'd been in your life for years, plural by this point, right? By the time you had built a friendship and then dated, and now you've been married, and now suddenly he's not. The isolation and the heartbreak that must have brought to you is palpable. Like it's just obvious that would have brought some. So I'm so curious if there was one thing that like hit you where you started finding some healing. What was that thing that made the difference for you?
I think things started to kind of change for me after I moved in with my brother, and I went no contact with him for a month. And I think it was like the combination of not having these weekly teardowns and not having this weekly, fighter. I mean, I was still very much in fight or flight, but like not confronting him weekly. And being with my brother, who was just, such a empathetic person who, he'd always just say like, Kiki bird, you don't deserve this. And, we would work together, and he would hear a song that reminded him of my situation, and we'd listen to it together and cry together. And it was like just such a healing time, because I think that was like kind of the moment where I stopped thinking about him as much, and I just started to kind of be like, okay, what are my goals in life? If my goal is to have like a healthy eternal family, he's not proving himself as someone capable of that. And as heartbreaking as that was to like realize, I think that was like the moment where I was like, I think I do deserve better. So yeah, that was probably like the moment where I kind of switched from, I think maybe I just kind of accepted that it was going to end. And even though like I would have done anything to try to save it, I probably did too much, honestly. Because up until I had, a lawyer draw out some papers, and literally I was on the phone, and I would have canceled all the papers if he would have said like, nope, I want to try. But, when I told him like, I have papers, are you sure this is what you want? And he said like, yep, I'm even more sure. And he looked so happy that like I was letting him go. And that stung a ton, seeing his reaction to that. But yeah, I think it was like not until that month of no contact where I was like, okay, this is probably where it's heading, and kind of having to prepare the funeral in a way.
Yeah. I would be happy for you to even talk more about that, about how that felt like that to you almost, about like how it's almost like preparing for something to end.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so interesting because, once he had signed and things, that is definitely the shift into the deep grief that I felt. And it's so weird to grieve a person who's still alive.
Yeah.
It's like so unreal. And I don't think I ever felt grief to that degree. But yeah, I luckily had a lot of good support, and I was really, I set a lot of boundaries with myself. Like I wasn't going to reach out to him. I set a boundary with him that he was only allowed to email me, and he would break that boundary often, and I would get back on the email and only email him reply over email. It's like, okay, come on, like I'm not answering these messages because I need to have the lawyer, looped in. So I just, I had a boundary that I would never look him up on social media, and I never did. and I have him blocked from everything. Just because I know like that is something I couldn't control his actions. I can't control what he decided, but I could control like if I was going to let myself add extra pain by like keeping that there. So that's
As you're
kind of
talking about these inclusion boundaries you have for yourself, I'm over here like, this is where the power is. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Your personal, like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm only going to communicate over email, regardless of whether or not he's respecting that boundary. You followed your own boundary both ways. And the fact that you found clarity, you were able to move into some acceptance after the month of no contact, I think is profound, because it's really, really, really hard to say, this person that I agreed for better, for worse, no matter what, here we are, we're in this together. And to go, actually, I think I need to take a separation. Like even just that decision, he did the decision of I'm abandoning you and here we go. But you had to make the decision of I need to separate myself just a little bit. And when you did that, you started finally being able to recognize, oh, wait, I do deserve to be treated well. I do deserve to have these things. I just think it's beautiful that you found the clarity of what kind of treatment you do deserve after taking a month of just getting out of the fog, is what I call it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely heard her saying like space really provided you a lot of clarity as I was hearing, and then really setting up those boundaries. I love the one of just like not looking him up on social media, like just not knowing anything about his life or what he is doing, right? Just to separate yourself completely from that and then focusing on what you could control versus what you couldn't. It's like that's what it sounded like you were doing, just looking at the things that you could control. So I think that that's just really, really beautiful. And so I don't know about Ashley, but I'm really curious to know like what your life has been like since getting divorced and like how you're doing now and just all the things. We want to hear all the things.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just kind of like wrap up that chapter. So so when I was working with the lawyer, I felt like it was important. I wanted the marriage to be annulled, which meant that, the state would see it as like it never happened. And when I talked to the lawyer, also tender mercy of the Lord, the lawyer ended up being my YSA bishop for my freshman year of college. So the person who helped me go on my mission. And he was just like a random contact. And he was like so good and so understanding. But he told me like, it's probably not going to be an annulment. Like you have to prove that it was fraudulent. Annulment doesn't really have anything to do with the length that you were married in Utah. It's more about just like if it was fraudulent. So I had to write this long testimony about all of the lies that I had been told, and the way he kind of presented himself was false. And I was actually with Ashley when I found out that the judge signed it, and it was considered an annulment. So that wrapped up, and a month later I was back at BYU. Terrible decision. Would not recommend. I was so stubborn, and I was like, no, I'm not letting him slow down my life. But I was so scared to be on the same campus as him, and I didn't find out till the end of the semester, where I had some kind of, I had worked through some of the trauma that I had and realized, that there was some instances of sexual assault, where I could have asked for help from the university. I could have asked for someone to help arrange our schedules, that we never had to see each other, and, could have had someone walk me to classes. Because I was a wreck every time I went up to campus. I was just like so anxious. But I will say, I do think Heavenly Father was watching out for me, because I never ran into him, despite him living just blocks away from me. So I know I was definitely protected. But yeah, I think I pushed myself a little too hard back into normal life. But at the same time, I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And then I graduated BYU, and I now work full time for a marketing agency, and I love what I do. I've moved out east. And I've just loved being closer to family. I live in DC, so I love exploring the city. I love spending time alone. I love to just go to museums, and I'm just really happy now, which I never would have thought I would be, like, even a year and a half ago.
Amazing.
Wow.
Even that sentence you said just now of I love spending time alone.
Yeah.
What are the odds that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, even before your marriage, that you would have been able to see that?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I've always been an independent person. I will give myself that. But I used to feel like if I didn't have plans on a Friday night, I was a loser. And now I just really value my company.
I love that.
I love that too. Value my company. That's a good one, Kiki.
Yes. We're gonna need a podcast quote board that just has things like I value my company on it. So, are we okay to switch to mic drop?
Yeah, let's definitely switch to mic drop.
All right. Our mic drop segment is just featuring the songs that helped you as you were healing. So tell us about the songs that you've brought today.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll first just give a little shout out to music, because I don't know, like, music is what carried me through so much. There were so many times where I was like, wait, has this singer like gone through exactly what I did? And it just like could speak to me on such a big level. So in general, I would say Carly Pierce, she's a country singer. She has an album called 29, and she got married and divorced in the same year. And so many of her songs I could relate to. And I love that album. And my siblings even had her do a cameo to me, and she just like gave me the sweetest message, and it was so nice.
That's amazing.
So
That's so amazing. You told me about that album, Kiki, and I love it because of you. It's a good album.
So happy. We love that. So that album was great. And then there's a couple other songs I had in mind. I really like the song "Not the Sun" by Morgan St. John. That's just about like,
yes, it's
kind of learning that person isn't the center of your world, and that you can keep going on without them. And another one is "Happiness" by Taylor Swift, and that one's kind of just about accepting the past and realizing that there's happiness still ahead of you. And then the one I thought we could talk about today was "Praying" by Kesha, which like you never would expect Kesha to have an emotional healing song. She's like the party queen. But yeah, I really like that song.
What is it about this song, "Praying," that just called to your soul while you were needing it?
Yeah, I think this was like the best song for me to sing while I cried in my car driving. So the whole premise of the song is like, it's accepting the hurt that someone's done to you, but it's also accepting the fact that it's not your job to like fix them. That, like the whole chorus is like, I hope you're somewhere praying. And I think that took me a while, and I'm still learning it, is like, it is ultimately their job to turn to the Lord for help, and like just learning that like that was never my responsibility. Even when we were dating, it was never my responsibility to help him through his pornography journey. That's like between him and the Lord. And so some of the lyrics that I like, so it starts off with saying, "You almost had me fooled, told me that I was nothing without you." And then she later on goes on and says, "I'm proud of who I am. No more monsters. I can breathe again. And you said I was done, but you were wrong. And now the best is yet to come, because I can make it on my own. I don't need you. I found a strength I've never known." And I just felt, just with all the things he said to me, I felt like I was nothing. And just learning that like I was a person of value, and I could make it without him. And it says, later it says, "You brought the flames and you put me through hell," which, I kind of do agree with. I had to learn how to fight for myself. and we both know all the truth I could tell. And that line really gets me too, because a big part of my struggle is like, do people understand that it wasn't my fault? Like, do people understand everything that happened? But just trying to live at peace that people don't need to know everything that happened, and like getting comfortable with my story of like, we both know all the things I could say, and you're not going to say any of them. But, you know, just switching to like, I'll just say, I wish you farewell. Like, I'm just leaving it. Like, God knows what happened. People closest to me knows what happened. And that's good enough. And I need to know what happens. And I'm still like, you know, still piecing that together. But yeah. And then there's one line near the end of the song, which I struggled with for a bit. It says, but some things only God can forgive. And when I first listened to it, I was like, I don't really agree with that lyric. But the way I've like taken that in and made it my own is like, there are some things that you literally need God's help in forgiving. Like, you know, we as humans can do a lot naturally to forgive others, but there are some hurts that like you really just do need the Savior to like hold your heart and be there with you. And in a lot of ways, I've had to be humble with that and realize that like, as much as I want to be able to control where I'm at with forgiveness and where I'm at with healing, I need to be patient and let the Savior fill in some of the cracks in my heart that have happened from all of this.
Yeah.
That got some emotions out of me. That there are some hurts that only God can come in and help us forgive.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
As I was reading these lyrics, I'm thinking about you, Kiki. That line, no more monsters, I can breathe again. I'm proud of who I am comes first. I'm proud of who I am. No more monsters, I can breathe again. I just went, ooh, this is perfect for Kiki. Because I remember you when you had decided to go back to the same campus. I remember you trying to walk on campus and being flooded with all of these things and not being able to breathe. Not even remembering I can do that anymore. I remember my own instances of I don't even know how to breathe. Like this thing that's supposed to be so easy. I don't even know how to do that anymore. And so this song that just says, wow, look at me. Look at what I've done. Look at where I'm at. Look at how I've overcome this. No more monsters. I don't have those things that are just going to jump out and scare me anymore. And I can breathe again. I'm okay. And I just think it's such a powerful song because I know a bit about your story, but also because I know what it feels like to not be able to breathe and to feel like there's going to be these monsters that come out. And I love that it starts with, I'm proud of who I am. And I hope that that resonates with you because I feel like you should be proud of who you are.
Thank you. That means so much to me.
Kiki, when Ashley told me what your songs were, I did look at this song and I looked at the lyrics. And something that really stuck out to me actually from the song was, when I'm finished, they won't even know your name. And I just love that because the only thing I've heard from you on this podcast is God and Kiki. And I really love that. You know what I mean? Like that really, really, really is what stuck out for me. And that it's like, that's right, you know, because yes, this happened. Yes, you went through this. Yes, you went through this, but this has happened to you. And look at you and look what you have overcome and look who you are now and all those things and what God brought you through and everything, you know? And so it's like, yeah, when you're finished, they won't even know his name.
Yeah, because it won't matter, right? It's just,
yeah.
Exactly.
We don't say his name. We say Voldemort now when we need to talk about him.
There you go.
All right, Kiki. As we're closing, if there's someone listening on this podcast who is newly married and their spouse has just told them, hey, it turns out maybe I don't love you, I've been lying to you this whole time. They're experiencing that same kind of feeling of abandonment and disregard and isolation. What would you tell them?
I think I would tell them, first off, that I'm so sorry for the pain that they are feeling. They don't deserve that. No one deserves that cruelty, especially not them. And let them know that who they are right in this moment has always been enough, that they didn't need to be anything more, and they don't need to be anything more. And that it's going to be such a hard road, but over time they will find healing, and they'll look back one day and say, wow, I didn't know I would ever be this happy. And I really do believe that.
Amazing. I love that. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and being vulnerable and sharing with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yes, we really, really appreciate it. Like your story, your experiences, like all of the things you share, like it's just imperative that other women get to hear what you have to say. And so I'm just like so grateful. Like I feel indebted to you that you're willing to come on here and share all of that. So just thank you so much, Kiki. I mean, you've already made an impact on my life, and now I can't wait for you to impact even more. So,
oh, well, thank you. Can I share one more story that I keep coming to mind? So maybe I need to share it. I don't know.
Do it.
I'll say, one of the hardest things is going back to some of those like triggering places and memories. And when I moved in with my brother, it was the same town that I grew up in, but it was also the same place where he had proposed to me. He had taken me to the temple and proposed and made this really long speech about, how he was so excited for us to have an eternal family. And like, out of all the other ways he could have proposed, he wanted to be at the temple, and, just this really amazing speech. And so I remember when I went back to Kansas City, I felt like I needed to go to the temple, but I was so scared to do it because of the memories that were there. And it was the first time I'd be going back to the temple since, COVID. And I, cried in the car as I pulled up, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then I heard a voice just say, like, just get yourself inside. And so I went inside, and the person who, scanned my temple recommend and welcomed me, he said, didn't you work in this temple? And I was like, yeah, like 3 or 4 years ago for a month. He was like, I remember you. And all of a sudden, like all of these memories that I had there without my ex came flooding back. And I just like kind of like, I just sat in the celestial room crying, thinking about, me going there as a 12-year-old, me going to the open house, being part of the cultural celebration of when it opened. And it just reminded me that I had such a bigger life outside of him. And that like, even though I felt abandoned by him, like the Lord was with me, and that he was going to remind me of like these beautiful memories that I had on my own to help carry me through. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. My goodness, crying all over today. You said, even though he abandoned me, the Lord was with me. But what I heard was, even though he abandoned me, the Lord never will. The Lord's not going to abandon you, that he's got you. He's got your back. He's got your front. He's got your future. I love that he was able to swoop in and send you all of these things and remind you that you are not that one experience. That those memories do not define you or your future. And there's so much more to you.
Yeah, totally. And it was so nice because, to be honest, I go in and out of feeling God because it's hard sometimes to feel like he's there and to trust. So those little moments where I could feel that, I just like really hold dear.
Yeah. The biggest moment's probably the most helpful, but yeah, no, that's amazing. And I love that, like, it just reminded you that there was so much more, so many more memories, even in that location. You only were there a month, like 3 or 4 years ago, working in that temple. And there was so much more than even that one huge memory. It's like, wow, that's amazing. And I just love that you're like, yeah, I worked here like 3 or 4 years ago for a month. He's like, I know you are. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you both. Like, you both have been so instrumental in like my healing, and just it's crazy how the worst thing that ever happened to me has brought me the best people in my life. So thank
So
you
true.
so much for being such amazing people.
Yeah. All right, Phoenix Forte listeners, thanks for joining us this week. We hope that you felt the kind of powerful impact that Kiki has had on our life, and that you leave today knowing that there's more and that you're going to be okay, and that you'll be able to breathe again. Until next episode, remember, you are not crazy and you're not alone. See you then.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We would love to hear from you. Please connect with us on social media at Phoenix Forte Pod, POD. Feel free to send us any questions or comments on Instagram.